Welcome to Storytime with Mama V. I'm your host, Victoria, but you can call me Mama V. In this show, we go on storytime adventures where magic exists, where brave knights and courageous princesses come out to play, and where the good always defies evil. Now, get comfy, because storytime is about to begin. Hello, and welcome to Storytime with Mama V. I'm so excited to read to you today. By the way, Happy New Year. At the time of this recording, we are in a brand new 2025. So Happy New Year to you. May you have a wonderful, happy, healthy, lucky, and abundant year. Okay, so our first story of the year is called The Friendship Adventure, written by Carole Barton. Now, this is a chapter book, and typically, we haven't done too many chapter books on the show. However, that's not to say that we won't take chapter books in the future. And this is a very interesting book. It is called The Friendship Adventure, a story about overcoming adversities. So I'm going to read you a section of the book, because if we read the whole book, well, it's going to be a bit of a longer episode for us, but I am going to give you a taste of it. And what this book is about is this. On an adventure to make a new friend, Bruno finds himself in some tough situations. He falls flat on his face, meets a hedgehog, and even gets lost in a dark, wet cave. Join Bruno on this exciting adventure, and don't forget to pack. And of course, there's a packing list. So what we'll need is a coping axe, an inclusion glue, and a friendship rope. So let's get into the first chapter of the Friendship Adventure. Let's go. When I close my eyes, I can still see the day when my great adventure began. I stood with my hands on my hips in awe at the top of the world, looking down at Somerset, England. I admired the amazing meadow through my black-framed goggles. The meadow was full of tall, green grass waving at to all as it blew in the wind. The flowers were singing with delight at the beautiful day. I stared at the sun, bursting forth with yellow, pinkish red, and purple colors as it peeked through the rain clouds. As I stared at the sky, I noticed a double rainbow that was looking right at me. Standing on the top of the hill, I gazed down at the river axe. It was not super fast like a red squirrel, but it also wasn't as slow as a snail. I felt curious as I watched the water. I knew the river was full of fish. I heard that there were salmon, trout, and kingfish in the river. I wanted to meet a kingfish to ask him how he kept his crown from falling off underwater. That is very, very interesting to me. I also wanted to see where the water was headed. I didn't know where it went, but as I attempted to follow the current through the water, I could faintly make out something past the meadow. I had never gone farther than the meadow up until this point. I lived in the same place for my entire life. I watched people find treasures every day. It was my job. Some days, there were marvelous items people left behind, like my circle pointer. On other days, I found absolutely nothing. I did enjoy getting to observe people. They were all so interesting in their unique ways. I enjoyed the meadow, but ever since my buddy Steve moved away, I couldn't stop dreaming of more. I wondered if the life I thought I saw beyond the meadow was worth exploring. I thought about what I would do, and after about 3 seconds, I decided that it was time for a change. I was going to go on a great exploration. I had no idea what was beyond the meadow, but I was determined to find out. More than a grand adventure, the greatest treasure of all was to find a new friend. I needed someone to share my thoughts and ideas with. So I carefully climbed down the hill and went to my house to get ready for my journey. My house was not special in any way because it was just a roof over my head. I grabbed my circle pointer as soon as I entered my home. I used it to know which direction to go in. I created a necklace out of rope and tied my circle pointer around my neck. I was certain that my circle pointer would find a way to a new friend. I picked up my sturdy backpack and began to put supplies and tools inside of it for my adventure. I knew I needed food for my trip, so I packed my favorite food, cheese. I put an extra pair of black frame goggles in my backpack because it is important to see exactly where you're going and where you've been. I wanted to be able to sleep peacefully, so I also included my weighted blanket. It is important to get rest so that your body can do its best. As I continued to pack, I saw my thinking stone. It was beautiful. My thinking stone looked as blue as the river Axe, and I could see right through it. But most importantly, it was rough on one side and smooth on the other. I pack my thinking stone because I hold it when I need to calm down and figure out the answers to problems. I brought my comb with me so I could look nice for a new friend. I like the way it makes my head feel when I use it too. I also brought my new magazine page. I like to look at faraway places. I looked at the strange writing on the page. Even though I didn't know what it said, I knew it must say something amazing. I packed food and tools that helped me focus. I was ready for an adventure and dreamed of making a new friend. As I slowly walked along, I had deep thoughts about meeting a new friend. I didn't have instructions or tools in my backpack for how to make a new friend. Sure, it was easy to start a friendship with my buddy Steve, but that was a long time ago. If I found a new friend, I didn't know what to talk to him or her about. I walked and thought about what to do. I wanted to be prepared to talk to a new friend. Let's see. I love to eat, and my favorite food is cheese. I ate some cheese as I continued to think. What else? I like to dream of faraway places. I enjoy good music. Bam, ba, bam, ba, bam, bam, bam. When I get a good beat going in my head, I feel relaxed. I started to hum and dance as I walked. Doobity-doo. I get into my music. I move my arms and legs to music, and my heart feels the beat while my head moves back and forth. As I danced and walked, I also hoped to find a friend on my journey that likes some of the same things I like. I began to hum. Then I started skipping. Skip, skippity, skip. I skipped faster and faster and faster. Before long, my feet got all caught up together and I went flying into the air. I felt like a bird. As I felt my body coming slowly back to the ground, I did a huge flip and landed on my gigantic feet perfectly. I landed on my feet! I looked to the left. No one. I looked to the right. No one. I looked down at my feet with pride and said, "That was an impressive feat. I felt quite pleased with myself. I wished someone saw my trick." I saw butterflies fluttering by, but I could tell that they hadn't even noticed my trick. If they did, I knew they would have been impressed and spoke to me. I saw birds flying by, but they missed my big movement too. They were probably on a mission to fly somewhere far away and wonderful. Bunnies were hopping by, but even they were too busy digging deep, deep holes to notice my super cool flip. I was watching the birds fly in the sky. Crash! I had no idea that there was a hole right in front of me. I didn't see the big hole, and I fell face first into that deep, dark tunnel. Ouch! As I brushed myself off, I poked my head out of the hole. My large, round eyes looked around to see if anyone saw my mistake. I looked like a spy on an underground secret mission. I even heard spy music in my head. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da. I looked to the left. No one. I stopped and breathed a sigh of relief. I looked to my right, and there, in front of me, was a sheep laughing his head off. As I stared at him, I saw his long hair in front of his big eyes. He was as puffy as a marshmallow. I thought to myself, really? Steve, my buddy that moved away, would have told me to keep on going and to make a new friend. I could still hear the sheep laughing at me. Bah! Bah! As I climbed out of the hole and walked away. Have you ever noticed that when you do something awesome, there's no one around to see, not even a possum? But when you fall, I mean really fall, there's always someone right there to see it all. I mean, it's like there's a speaker that shouts, "You gotta see this. Someone fell." I haven't had a friend for a long time. Maybe one day I could have one friend, just one. I took my thinking stone out of my backpack and thought about what happened. I did something amazing and no one saw it. I messed up and was laughed at by a sheep. Ugh. I began to think about it. I was feeling anxious and a little embarrassed. This was a small problem. When I say small, I mean tiny, like my nose. It was not a large problem, like my really big feet. It certainly wasn't worth stopping my adventure. I kept going. I thought, oh well, maybe next time someone will see me do something amazing. I put my thinking stone back in my backpack. While I was looking in my backpack, I took out more cheese to eat. I walked, ate, and skipped. I checked my circle pointer again. It was leading me straight ahead. I believed that a new friend would be on this path too. I just had to walk, watch, and wait. But my feet were getting so tired. I felt like I was walking forever, and I still had no idea what was beyond the meadow. As the dandelions gently blew in the wind, I decided to take a break under the tall trees. I climbed up to the top of the rocks by the trail. I saw a spectacular view. The tall green grass swayed back and forth as much as the wildflowers did. Through the gentle breeze, I heard the river axe as it rushed by. It was even louder than when I started my trip. The sun was peeking at me through the tall trees all around me. The amazing glow was now straight up in the sky. I enjoyed the sounds and the wonders of the meadow. Before long, it was time for me to put my backpack back on and move on in my adventure. I couldn't decide if I should go fast or slow. I wasn't going to run, that was for sure. I don't think anyone would run with a backpack and a weighted blanket in it. It might be heavy, but it sure helped me focus and feel prepared for what came next. I just need to keep an eye out for any more holes. As I walked along, I soon came to a lake. I slowed down to enjoy the view. I saw a swan gracefully swimming all alone. I wanted to be polite and possibly make a new friend, so I quietly went over to the bank of the lake. As I stood there, I said clearly, Good morning, Swan. How are you today? Huh. She didn't even say one word. She stared at me for 2 seconds, proceeded to stare at my circle pointer, then opened her beak quite wide. Oh my gosh, I was so excited that she was going to talk to me, but as I waited and watched, what I saw was strange. She wasn't able to make a sound. She just looked at me with sad eyes. I knew in my heart that she wanted to tell me something, but I didn't know what she was trying to say. I think she was attempting to speak to me in a silent language. I said to her, I noticed that you appreciate a good circle pointer. After I said that, the swan gracefully swam away with a tear falling down her cheek. I thought back to what I said. I was polite to the swan. Maybe she had something else to do or somewhere else to be. What I do know is that she did like my circle pointer. As I walked on, I heard a very loud bell ringing. Ring, 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 ring. While I didn't know where the swan had gone, I hoped that one day we could be friends. As I walked on, I told myself, you are on a mission. Your mission is to find a new friend beyond the meadow. With all of the new day still fresh in my brain, I began to skip again. I decided to practice more flip tricks. I started skipping very quickly this time, but it felt different for some reason. I wasn't sure why. Before I could figure out what was different, my body was coming off the ground again. I was midair and turning upside down when I could feel my huge feet get tangled up in a big mess. I was certain that this would not turn out well. I held on to the air for as long as I could, and then, thud! My body dropped to the ground. Ouch! I shouted as I landed on the earth. I opened my eyes, and the first thing I saw was a hedgehog staring right back at me. Oh, my heart began to beat faster. The-thump, 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 the-thump. My face was red and glowing. I was so embarrassed. I wanted to at least try to talk to the hedgehog, but I never knew for sure where a hedgehog's ears could be found. They have so many spikes. Were his ears on his nose? Were they on his back? Then it dawned on me. His ears must be on his belly button. I got down low to the ground and loudly spoke into his tummy. Good morning, hedgehog. How are you? The hedgehog curled up into a ball. Oh, I looked down at my enormous feet. Like my flip in front of him, my first time meeting the hedgehog had fallen flat. As I walked away, I started to wonder if there was something wrong with me. I tried to become friends with a swan and a hedgehog, and both of them didn't want to have anything to do with me. I walked with my head down, feeling sorry for myself, when I came to a very large puddle in the meadow. I looked down into the water. My black-framed goggles were falling down my face. I adjusted my goggles. I already ate a great deal of cheese during all of my snack breaks. I wiped my mouth. My hair was everywhere from all of the flips I had done that day. I took my comb out of my backpack so I could fix my hair. I looked back into the puddle one more time. I said to my reflection, "Hello, how are you today?" I chuckled as I continued. "I'm well, how are you?" I need to remember that I've always liked me. I smiled as I walked on. As I kept walking on and on, I started feeling my small problem grow from nose size to foot size. I began to think that making a new friend was a big problem. I knew that I needed to use my tools to fight my thoughts of giving up. I didn't want to get stuck, and I didn't want my brain to stop growing. I found a place to sit in the meadow. I opened my backpack and took my weighted blanket out. I stretched out in the tall grass, put the blanket around myself, and looked up at the sky. The feeling of the weights in the blanket helped me shake off my negative thoughts. I just kept on thinking and saying to myself, I can find a new friend. I can find a new friend. I can do this. I can find a new friend. The more I said this, the happier I felt. I can find a new friend. Yeah, I can find a new friend. I took a deep breath and held it for several seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. I let that deep breath out and continued to tell myself, I can do this. While I was taking a break, I took more cheese out of my backpack. For me, it's good to have a snack when I'm feeling hungry. I took my thinking stone out of my backpack. I held it in my hand. I stood there for a moment and then I started to do some stretches. Stretch, stretch, stretch. Stretching your body is just as important as stretching your brain. As I stretched, I started to sing. And of course, I had to dance too. La 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 la. Look my cool moves. Here I go. Toodly-doo. As I moved my arms and legs through the air in a jerking way, I wondered if anyone might be watching me. I put my tools in my backpack. I checked my circle pointer to make sure I was going in the right direction. And then I stretched one last time. Ooh, big stretch. I decided to walk slowly as I thought deep thoughts. Using my tools has helped my brain grow and change. I used to think only negative thoughts, but now I have replaced them with positive thoughts. With confidence, I said out loud to the air, "This may take some time and some effort, but I've got this." Okay, my beautiful friends. I mean, this was just chapter 1 of the friendship adventure. Listen, check out the entire book. I will link it in the show notes description, and I highly, highly, highly encourage you to read it. Whether you are a grown-up reading to a child, or perhaps you're one of my listeners that can read all on their own, check this book out. It's got a good message, and I really, really like this story. Thank you so much for tuning in. Oh, and by the way, if you heard little rumblings like pages turning while I was reading the story to you, it was pages turning. The author, Carole, sent me the physical book, and I was holding it in my hands while I was reading it to you. So this episode, I wanted to record it in a more of a natural style so that you can get the feeling of kind of like we're sitting in a room and I'm reading this book to you and I'm turning the pages as I read the story. Thank you so much for tuning in. By the way, if you love the show, share it with a friend, leave us a rating and a review, and I will see you on the next episode of Storytime with Mama V. Bye for now.